The king, Rohan, is above politics. Okay, that's a nice way of put it. That means that democracy does not pertain to the king. He's above democracy. Thailand is actually not a democracy. There was the border clash just a month later, really, in July, late July. A lot of Thai people were killed. This resoundingly led to anti-Cambodian sentiment in Thailand. Anutin eventually become prime minister, and then he used the nationalism to glide towards a victory. But that wasn't the only factor.
I've been following Thailand for a while because I live in India, and India and Thailand have really close relations. But there was protests in Thailand in 2022 and 2023, and these were called the Anti-Monarchy Protests. Welcome to FO Talks. With me is Paul Chambers. He's a renowned Thailand expert who is currently teaching at the University of Oklahoma. Today, we will discuss the results of the Thailand election that were held on 8th of February. Paul, thank you very much for speaking to Fair Observer.
Thank you very much for having me here. I'm from the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies, and it's a pleasure.
Right. Well, let's begin. For our viewers who are unfamiliar with Thai politics, what really happened in this election?
Well, this election represented a landslide victory for the forces of the right, for conservative forces in Thailand. And it also thus represented a resounding defeat for the forces of progress and increased, democracy.
Mm-hmm. Right. So what we know is that Prime Minister Anutin Virakul has come back with a decisive victory. But this is despite the fact that early polls were favoring the progressive forces. How do you think this unexpected outcome came out?
Well, I think there were several factors. Okay. First of all, Anutin and his party Boomjai Thai was riding this wave of nationalism, pro-Thai nationalism that had begun last May, June, between in the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia, a border clash. There had been this audio clip of a phone conversation between then Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra and the strongman of Cambodia, Hun Sen. And in that conversation, the Thai Prime Minister, talked negatively about the Thai army. And so when this came out publicly, it really made the Pheu Thai party, Thaksin Chinawatra's party, he's been the big shot for so many years, look really bad. All this nationalism began to erupt. And then there was the border clash just a month later, really, in July, late July. A lot of Thai people were killed. This resoundingly led to anti-Cambodian sentiment in Thailand. And it helped Anutin eventually become prime minister. And then he used the nationalism to glide towards a victory. But that wasn't the only factor. Another factor, actually, is that there were some there were some election irregularities. Okay, there have been allegations of extreme vote buying in several provinces, and the political party, People's Party, the Progressive Party, has really tried to reveal this and called for investigations. So I think that election irregularities is another big issue. However, then there's another factor, and that was that the conservative forces, the political parties, conservative parties, they used different strategies to work against the progressive People's Party. So, for
Hmm.
example, one of them would run in one province, another in another province. Um, and so that did work. Um,
Right.
Two more factors is that the Boom Thai party of Anutin worked hard with
Hmm.
local strongmen in all the provinces to gain votes through the strongmen for the Boom Thai party. And finally, we have to say that money is very important, all in all. And, Anutin, at the time being prime minister, was able to use the bureaucratic structures of the interior ministry to help
Hmm.
glide that money through to vote canvassers who were able to put out the vote. So, all of these factors together, some of them legal, some of them illegal, I think propelled Anutin to victory.
Right. I think, Paul, you've raised some very important issues here, and you've categorically broken down how the party won. And of course, one was the nationalist sentiment that you spoke of. Then you also have corruption. You've also got vote cutting. So I will go through them one by one. I want to know how much of an impact did the nationalist sentiment make, and I want you to maybe tell us how Thailand's urban and rural populations voted in this election when it comes to these kind of issues.
All right, nationalism was important. Okay,
Hmm.
clearly, Anutin was riding that wave of nationalism because honestly the border conflict has been continuing even though there was a December 27th ceasefire, which is very
Right.
frail. Okay, and some people would argue, well, maybe Anutin didn't not really want that ceasefire because he wants to use that in the pre-election campaign, the lack of a ceasefire. But in terms of the rural versus urban votes, certainly the rural votes that were near the Thai Cambodian border were very pro Anutin. Okay, because there's a lot more nationalism. People near the Cambodian border are feeling the clash between the two countries. So I would say we don't know yet if all of the vote counts for
Hmm.
connected to nationalism, but I would think that the rural vote was more nationalistic. The urban vote, however, was not based so much on that. And the evidence for this is that if you look at Bangkok, okay, the Bangkok voting results, guess what? The People's Party, the Progressive People's Party, won every single district in Bangkok. That's about 33 districts.
Hmm.
And that tells you that nationalism and Boomjai Thai conservatism was not popular in Bangkok.
Hmm.
Also, another urban area, which is Chiang Mai, probably the second largest city, it saw the Progressive People's Party win almost all the seats.
Right.
So again, you could argue that the more urban the setting in Thailand, the more a progressive party was able to win. And on the other hand, the more rural the more rural the setting, the more likely that the conservative Boomjai Thai of Anutin could win.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating because this is the first time in decades that the conservatives have won big in Thailand. So I want to know whether the reason I'm asking you this is because you've lived in Thailand, you've been in Thailand, you've seen the people, you've interacted with the community. Do you think we're seeing an ideological shift in the overall Thai society where you've got one side that is heavily leaning towards the conservatives and you've got the urban centers which are towards the progressives?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I think there's one other thing I think you need to consider in terms of this election is that the People's Party which is the successor of
Mm-hmm.
another progressive party called Move Forward, which it was another successor of the Future Forward. This particular version of that party did not organize itself as well as its predecessors, okay, in the election. I think that it could have been organized better. I think there could have been more leadership. I think that People's Party did not resonate itself very well in rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it did a great job in Bangkok. Okay, great.
Right.
Um, and we have to say, it did score the second largest number of votes and seats, but it certainly did a lot worse than previously. So I think I think a lot of that, though, is just a very poor organizational skill. And right now, People's Party, I think, is looking to see how they can make changes for the next election. Now, back to your question, though, ideological shift. Um, I think that it's this election, again, there was a lot of corruption, but
Mm-hmm.
also Anutin was playing the nationalist card. He was wrapping himself in the flag of Thailand, and I don't see that as an ideological shift. In other words, I'd say it was the temper of the times that he used.
Right. Paul, you've beautifully broken down this selection, and but I want to get a little deeper into Thai society. So, not many people, or maybe they do know, that Thailand also has a king. So you've got the king, you've got the monarchy, and then you've got the government. How do these two work together? Is there separation of powers, or is the monarchy the ultimate, and then you've got the parliament?
I like the way you say that. um, so the king, the king, Rohan, is above politics. Okay, that's a
Hmm.
nice way to put it. The king has all ultimate power in Thailand. All right, so there's no way that he's in charge of this and he's in charge of that. No, he's above everything.
Hmm.
Okay, that means that democracy does not pertain to the king. He's above democracy. Thailand is actually not a democracy.
Hmm.
Well, you have the king, and the king's guardian is the military. Military plays an enormous role. And as I've said before, and it's been said by many others, Thailand is dominated by a partnership between the king and the military, with the military as junior partner. Okay.
Hmm.
The king legitimizes the military to have a major role in society, while the military helps to guard, actually, leads in the guardianship of the king. These are the two big institutions of the country. Now, the judiciary also works to help this aristocratic alliance, but they are lesser than the military, because the military can always stage a coup and stop all laws, and but the military has to act with the king's support. So that's how Thailand acts. And then the question might be, well, what's the role of the parliament then? Well,
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a sort of democracy, but it's a sideshow. It's a sideshow
Hmm.
to the elite power politics which dominates Thailand. Well, what part of parliament? The Senate is not democratic. Okay, the
Hmm.
Senate system is appointed, and the it's only the lower house that could be said to have any democracy of sorts. Okay, well, the lower house can investigate. Okay, the lower
Hmm.
house also votes on spending bills and budgets. Okay, that's about the extent of its power. Of course, money is important. Um, then again, the lower house is never going to do anything that the king doesn't agree to. Okay, that would be a
Mm.
no-no. If the House were to ever try such a thing, I'm sure there'll be another military coup. And then those people would be put in prison. Speaking of prison, by the way, and we're talking about the king, I think it's important to discuss Section 112 of Thailand's criminal code. If
Hmm.
I hope I'm not going too far for you, or should I wait for you
No, no,
to?
that is perfect because that was my segue because I wanted you to speak about the king and the monarchy because you're kind of famous, Paul, in Thailand, and
Oh,
not many people may
well,
know this that in April 2025 you were sentenced to 15 years in prison. Can you tell us more about that?
first of all, I'll tell you about the law. So
Hmm.
Thailand's criminal code, section fifth section, well, in the criminal code 112, it says that you cannot insult the king, the heir, the regent, okay, if there is one. And it's a very ambiguous law. And so, because of the ambiguity, uh, many people use it to politically attack their enemies, okay,
Hmm.
or their perceived enemies, okay, and often innocent people. Right now, there are over 281 people that have cases of 112 in Thailand. All right. Mine was one case
Hmm.
that began actually late in 2024 when I was just at a conference, online conference, sort of like this,
Hmm.
about military in Thailand. Okay, and that conference, just stated in the conference, there was a flyer at the conference, and it stated, "Oh, this the king of Thailand has more power than the prime minister." Okay,
Hmm.
I think everybody knows that. I didn't even write that flyer, so but my name was attached to it because I was the expert on the Thai military, and um, so there were individuals who got angry at me, military officials. What happened then from that conference in March of 2025? I was accused of lese majeste by the Thai military.
Hmm.
Why? Because of that conference flyer, I had said the king is more powerful than the prime minister, and the military. When the police arrested me, they said, that's not what it says in the law. That the king is more powerful than it doesn't really. But I was charged actually on two counts. Number one, I was charged with posting this flyer as if I
Hmm.
had personally posted it on the website. And secondly, I was charged under the Computer Crimes Act with owning the website. It's not my website, and I didn't post it, someone else did. So for that, I was put in prison.
Right.
And a prison in rural areas where I was kept with their general population. I was warned by prisoners that because of the allegation, the charge against me of 112, that I might be in trouble with the prisoners.
Hmm.
Okay. So I had to be afraid to look behind me. It was very scary. I did get out of prison. Actually, it doesn't seem like much. I got out after 2 nights, and then but I was always under the threat of being returned to prison. Why? Because Thailand took away my passport. Uh,
Hmm.
they uh, anyway, they had looked around my office without a warrant, trying to find any information to put me back in prison. So, with a lot of help from the Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, my wife, and academic Dr. Napisa Waitungkit, with organization called Global Reach and the U.S. Embassy, I was finally able to get out of Thailand in late May. But two things. Number one, the charges were eventually dropped against me
Okay.
by the Thai government. And number two, to this day, the Thai immigration police will not give me a visa.
So you can't go
No,
back.
I could,
Not as of
I
now.
could go back maybe on a pass, like a tourist pass,
Hmm.
for like 5 or 10 days. But I've been told that, if I did try that, I might not get in. I'm probably on a blacklist. And
Hmm.
secondly, if I did try to get back in, there might be new charges against me. So where I am now, I'm staying with my mother in the United States, and bless her heart, she helped me so much while I was here. She was writing all kinds of letters, um, and that's where I'll stay for now.
Right. But, so how did you eventually get to leave Thailand? I mean, when you look at media reports, it says that academic Paul Chambers had to flee the country. Is that really true?
Yes. Um, so the I was trying to avoid all the details, but I'll tell you. Eventually, on May 1st, the regional prosecutor dropped the charges. Okay.
Hmm.
But in Thailand, the police have to agree with the regional prosecutor for the case to end. The police did not agree. Why?
Hmm.
Because the police were kind of under the thumb of the military, and the military
Hmm.
had brought the charges. So I was sweating and thinking I might be going back to prison. Uh, Eventually, the Attorney General of Thailand dropped the
Hmm.
charges. So that was the only person who could do that then. And then the police had to drop the charges. With that, though, the military was pretty angry. And at the same time, Thailand is a very bureaucratic country, a lot of bureaucracies.
Hmm.
The immigration police had my passport, and they said, well, okay, charges are dropped, but we're still keeping your passport. Can you imagine how weird that is, right? I don't have any more charges, but they're keeping my passport. They're saying, well, we can keep it for at least 60 days if we want. At that point, the US ambassador and my lawyers pressured and pressured the immigration authorities. The US ambassador called me and he said, you need to get out of there right now. Why?
Hmm.
There was the implication that a new charge might come against me.
Hmm.
There were some right wing journalists who were already looking at some of my work to try to find a new charge. That said, then I rushed to Suvarnabhumi Airport, and the immigration police were in a car behind me just to kind of make sure. I went to the airport, I guess. One of them was even in the van I was taking. We got to Suvarnabhumi Airport, and guess what? I was still on a blacklist in terms of being allowed to fly out of there. So I,
Hmm.
I was getting I was getting my ticket on the Singapore Airlines. He said, "I'm sorry, we can't let you have a boarding pass because the immigration police won't let you out." I'm at
Hmm.
Suvarnabhumi Airport, and so my wife, she talks with the immigration police. She's really angry. There's a lot of telephone calls, and finally they let me get the boarding pass. But I still didn't have my passport. I still didn't have my passport at the airport. The guy was holding my passport, and the immigration police, and they only returned my passport when I got to the boarding gate.
Hmm.
So yes, I had to flee. That's the long answer.
In a nutshell, yes. In a nutshell, yes. But Paul, I want to talk more about this because you gave us an exact figure, but more than 200 people have been arrested for this. But I've been following Thailand for a while because I live in India, and India and Thailand have really close relations. But there was protests in Thailand in 2022 and 2023, and these were called the anti-monarchy protests. And these rallies had about 5 to 10,000 people. It was all young people, and they were protesting against the monarchy. How come they didn't get arrested, or there weren't large scale brutal crackdowns by the army and the police? Or there were, and the media
Okay.
just didn't cover it.
Well, actually, the demonstrations began in 2020,
Hmm.
and they began um, after a Thai dissident had disappeared in Cambodia. A man who had, his name is Wanchalam, who had spoken out against monarchy in Thailand, and he was disappeared in Cambodia. Also, the Future Forward Party had been dissolved by the
Mm.
courts. So then there began to be these student demonstrations. The way that the military and police responded to the demonstrations was they did use force,
Hmm.
uh, but oftentimes the security forces worked through right wing goons. Okay, sort of, it wasn't directly that you could see the military coming down on these students. The police were heavily involved, but it wasn't always, and also it wasn't just security forces cracking down on demonstrators. Okay, what would happen sometimes is security forces would visit the parents
Hmm.
of demonstrators, especially leaders, and threaten them. Okay, and so it was kind of a clever way to come down on the protesters. Okay,
Right.
and other things that happened was certain protesters were put in prison. Okay, like Unknown Nampa, who is still in prison. He'll be in prison for decades and decades. Okay, and he said, "I'm willing to do that." So he is a hero for
Hmm.
Thai protesters and Thai youth today. I know Nampa. There are many others who went to prison, male and female. Um, and we can say this, though, because of these tactics by the state, it weakened the protest movement.
Hmm.
Another final factor I would like to say, though, is that when the Move Forward Party uh, scored a victory in 2023, in the election
Hmm.
of 2023, it sort of made some people who were progressive decide to say, hey, let's just see how far a Move Forward Party can go through the system. And guess what? We can see now that the Progressive People's Party is weak. However, only a few hours after the election this year, the judiciary ruled that 44 members of the People's Party had, I'm sorry, I'll back up. The National Anti-Corruption Commission
Hmm.
ruled that it would forward the case of 44 members of the People's Party. It would forward that case to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will clearly rule in favor of the NACC. What does that mean? It means that 44 members of this party and predecessor party are going to lose their political rights for years, maybe forever.
Hmm.
Uh, there are only 10 members of that, 10 of those 44 that are still actively involved. However, now this is what people aren't talking about. Once they are found guilty by the Supreme Court, if that happens, which it will, I think, then the courts could rule to dissolve the People's Party.
Hmm.
Okay? And if the People's Party is dissolved, yeah, there can be some more members jumping to other parties, but it'll
Yeah.
be even smaller. It'll be even a smaller party. And this is a way to just incrementally weaken progressive reformism in Thailand.
Right. And I'm glad you ended on that, because I want to come back to the election, on which was on the 8th of February, because at the election there was also a referendum where people showed strong support for drafting a new constitution. Now, can you just quickly inform our viewers more about what this referendum is about?
Okay, the Constitution of 2017 was put in place by the military because the military had ruled through a junta from 2014 to 2019. Okay. So how do you say, the legal officials that put together the Constitution had been chosen by the military, and of course, other right wing officials. Now, that Constitution had a lot of problems. Number one, an appointed Senate, and the Senate could decide on whether prime minister. It could work with the lower house to decide on who could become a prime minister or not.
Hmm.
Okay, so certainly the Senate has problems, and there are other big problems in the Constitution. I'm just giving you that example. So the idea was to amend the Constitution to make it more of a people's constitution in line with the 1997 Constitution. Okay,
Hmm.
that's the most liberal constitution Thailand's had in recent years. But there's a problem. It takes many referendums, it takes 3 referendums to be able to amend the Constitution of Thailand.
Hmm.
Okay, and this referendum represents only the first step. There has to be 2 more referendums. And you can be sure, Rohan, that this new government of Anutin is not going to be gung ho about more successful referendums. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, I hope that explains it a bit. Now, the People's Party had made a deal with Anutin's government in September of last year, is when Anutin became prime minister, that Anutin would support referendum in exchange for support for Anutin's government from People's Party. And Anutin said that he was supporting the referendum. Definitely he was supporting it. But in December, Anutin all of a sudden dissolved the government, dissolved the House. And here we go. Anutin now, he could probably argue that, hey, you saw the election result.
Hmm.
People don't want change. They don't want change. That's an argument.
Right.
Okay. And I'm sure he'll make that argument.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul, for speaking to Fair Observer. You've given us insights about Thailand and Thailand's election and how things run in the country, how the politics are, how the people are, and of course your ordeal with the Thai government. And it's been a pleasure having you speaking to Fair Observers. Thank you again.
Thank you, Rohan. Thank you very much.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.